I've made a couple of videos lately about how red rural working class Oregon is suffering under Trump and how it's only going to get worse. How counties that voted 79% for Donald Trump are being absolutely crushed by his policies, by the illegal actions of Doge and Elon Musk, by all of the things that these folks voted for. How they earnestly believed that Donald Trump was going to make America great again and bring them a better quality of life. Because let's be real, rural Oregon, like most of rural America, is struggling. I will say this over and over and over again until everybody understands it. This is not the life we should be living. Things are not how they should be, and they have not been for a long time. The discontent on the right is very real. It is the same discontent we on the left feel, that every working class person is being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed by billionaires at the top, by corporations, that we are being bled dry so that a few people can get richer and richer and richer. That life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness feels inaccessible for the working class in America. The problem is that MAGA thinks that it's Black folks, brown folks, queer folks that are to blame. They think that billionaires are their friends that are going to fix everything. They think Elon Musk, who has tanked Twitter, has $1.4 billion missing from the books at Tesla, is a financial mastermind who is going to somehow cut all of the pork in the federal government and make everything better. They have very foolishly conflated the deficit in America with the reason that they are suffering. And I know this is a long-time conservative belief that if we could reduce the debt, if we could cut the deficit, that things would get better. And we all need to tighten the belt for a bit and get our deficit down. And then magically we'll be more prosperous and happy. And I see the comments from MAGA folks on my YouTube videos a lot because my content tends to be viewed by a much different audience over there than it is on TikTok. And they don't even seem to understand the difference between a deficit and the national debt. Or like a deficit is a budget shortfall. It's how much the spending of the federal government exceeds what they are taking in a given period. While the debt is the accumulation of all of those successive shortfalls. It represents the total amount that we owe. Right? The deficit is how much we're going to have to borrow this year in order to pay all our bills for this year. The debt is the accumulation of that money from year to year. It is how much we as a nation owe. Right? It's the net amount of all our deficits and our surpluses. And more, I'm seeing conservatives in my comments who once said that they thought the Trump regime was going to bring about basically like an immediate drop in grocery prices. He was going to end the war in Ukraine and in Gaza on day one, and we weren't going to have all that military spending. I wonder what they think now about how he wants to go to war with Canada and what's that going to do to our debt. They originally thought like, oh, I'm going to have more money in my pocket immediately. In fact, just a few weeks ago, they were talking about how Elon Musk was going to cut every person in America $5,000 to $8,000 because he was saving so much money through Doge. Of course, now they have backtracked on all of that, especially in light of, well, I don't know if they're aware of it, but especially in light of the fact that it came out this week that the cuts to the IRS that Doge is making illegally are going to cost us between $500 and $1 trillion because there will not be IRS workers doing the investigations and doing the work that is required to collect the debt that the wealthiest Americans owe. I know that nobody likes the IRS. I hate doing my taxes. I don't love how, as a self-employed person, it feels brutal to have to pay my taxes and know how much of that is going to funding Trump's golf trips, is going to fund the wars that we are waging overseas. I don't love that. Now, I'm happy to pay my taxes to do things like fund school lunch for, hungry children, to make sure that our bridges and roads are drivable, to make sure that our electric grid works, to make sure that our elders are able to get nursing care and memory care in their final months and years, to make sure that we have good public health policy, that we have safe food, that we have regulations to protect consumers and workers and the environment. I'm happy to pay taxes for those things. Sorry to go on a tangent there. When they cut IRS employees, what they are doing is making sure that they don't have the people power to investigate and collect on taxes owed by the very wealthiest. And so ultimately, that means the IRS brings in less money, and that hurts the working class. It means that even fewer of the super rich are paying their fair share. I mean, they were never paying their fair share, but it means they will pay even less. So I consistently see folks, and especially in the comments of my last couple videos about how rural Oregonians are struggling with schools being subjected to loss of funding, Medicaid, Medicare, veterans benefits being cut, federal workers being fired from places like NOAA, from the Park Service, from the Forest Service. We are seeing federal employees laid off in rural parts of the state. And what I'm seeing is this sunk cost fallacy. I'm seeing this doubling down in my comments from MAGA, where originally they thought they were going to have prosperity on day one. They thought there weren't going to be taxes on tips and overtime. And they thought they were immediately going to be wealthier and they were going to get some kind of reprieve from the squeezing that the society is doing to them. But instead, I am now seeing this sunk cost fallacy because they realize things are getting much harder very quickly. And they are not going to have that instant prosperity. They are suffering. They are realizing, oh shit, like, this is bad. This is bad. How am I going to pay my rent? I've lost my job. I've lost my VA benefit. I'm being reevaluated on my service rating and my VA benefits are going to go down. My doctor at the VA has been fired. My children are on Medicaid. My family's on food stamps. We're going to lose all of that. What they're now saying is that's part of Trump's plan. That's part of the plan. Do you remember Elon Musk told us that we were going to have to tighten the belt? We were going to have to suffer. Trump told us there would be a period of hardship. And you know what? It just proves what good Americans we are. We are willing to forego the comforts that we thought we were going to have. We are willing to suffer now because it's going to bring down the debt. We are willing to suffer because we believe that bringing down the debt is this like moral absolute good. And we are willing to suffer for that. I have never understood that. This obsession that the right has with being willing to cut services for the most vulnerable folks and to tell them like, this is good. You're making a good sacrifice. This is the one life that you get to live. These are your days and your years, and we're going to make them all harder for you. But it's okay because we're going to cut the debt. So now they're all saying like, this is good. This is patriotism. This is national pride. I'm willing to suck it up. I'm willing to tighten the belt if it brings down the debt. But then they're not looking at the GOP budget. First of all, they're not looking at how DOGE is not saving the American people money. It's actually costing the American people money now. Remember, $500 billion to $1 trillion. But also the GOP budget that they want to push through is going to increase the debt by $4 trillion over the next 10 years. To do one thing. There will be one reason for that, and that will be to give handouts to the richest folks, to let the richest folks off the hook, to make sure that they don't have to pay their fair share, to give tax breaks to them. One thing, we are going to go trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars deeper into debt so that the 0.1% can get richer. And I don't know if MAGA has just like not looked at the budget, if they don't actually bother to examine the numbers, if they just believe Musk's tweets and whatever Trump barfs up on Truth Social. But I don't think it's fair to actually characterize it that way. The husband of one of my friends is a Republican who voted for Trump, and he's very educated. They're quite affluent. And he earnestly believes like, it's okay, we have to go through this hard time now. This is what it means to be fiscally responsible and to be conservative. It'll get better on the other end of this. We just got to go through this. And on the other end, it'll be better. See, it's that sunk cost fallacy. One more day, one more week, one more year. Suffer a little bit harder. And on the other side will be prosperity. There's no examination of like, how? How are you going to be more prosperous? How is that going to come to fruition? What does that process look like? So I don't really know how to reach those folks. It's so desperately sad to see folks in rural Oregon in my comments being like, yeah, it sucks right now. We are suffering, but it's okay. We're proud to make this sacrifice for Trump. I mean, you could argue that that's like another bit of evidence that they're in a cult where their suffering is seen as noble, right? That also very much sparks of Christofascism, where your suffering is seen as a moral good. But they just seem so unaware that they are needlessly suffering. So the super rich who live in the lap of luxury can pad out their wallets even more, and that it doesn't have to be that way. Which is why I think that we need compelling leaders. We need folks to come forward who can galvanize the working class, who can speak to the needs of all of the working class, who can convey the reality of the situation, that the reason that we are all suffering is because of billionaires, that the working class doesn't have to live this way. But it will never be billionaires who save us. Their only goal is to exploit us and make themselves richer and more powerful. I mean, I understand why folks don't have empathy for MAGA and why they enjoy the FAFO, but I don't think that most of these folks are going to experience find out because they are so committed to their sunk cost fallacy. They are so determined to justify their worldview, and it's too painful for them to see what they have done, how they wanted to hurt somebody else, but what they actually did was hurt themselves and their children. I don't know, it's such a mess, and it's so terribly sad.